acceptance skills. Anybody do that this week?
I tried to do it. I couldn't concentrate. Everything I did was too noisy,
Noisy.
and I couldn't listen to my body.
Ah, okay. Interesting. So maybe find some quieter.
Well,
Good for you that you tried, but
I would have to sit down. I can sense it some, but not as deep as I would like to. It's the body.
okay. Okay. Great. Yeah.
Did
And
a
maybe
little,
finding other activities that are not so noisy. Or was it just that it was noisy in your mind?
Well, yeah, and pain too. I was like cleaning the litter box. Well, what the heck? And but the pain in my back hurt so bad it was distracting.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. So then maybe just paying attention to the pain in the back and seeing what happens then, rather than,
I'll try that.
yeah. Yeah. Anybody else do your homework last week?
yeah, I've done some of it.
Yeah.
And I finally got around to putting socks together yesterday. um, and
Did you learn anything by doing it?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, okay. You feel like it started to make a difference in terms of how you perceive, let's say, an activity, and in terms of doing it with the idea of getting it done, as opposed to doing it with the idea of paying attention to just accepting whatever's happening now? You get that difference?
I'm not sure I went that far with it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so it's something to practice.
Mm.
So anybody else want to check in either with doing the homework or anything else that you want to share before we get into some of what I wanted? Yes, Carol.
Well, I is that the same as mindfulness, Donna? Being mindful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do that sometimes, like if I'm washing dishes, but something that's been on my mind a long time. You've done exercises for mindful eating,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes so much sense to really enjoy what you're eating at the time. And I try that to a certain extent, but I find that if I close my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
I can taste the food better. But how does that work, say, if you're eating with other people? If you're being mindful of the taste of your food, how can you be mindful of that and then also carry on, a conversation with other people?
That's a great question because I've asked myself that too. And a lot of times the way I get to do that is to simply go, this tastes really good, which then gives me the opportunity to focus, and other people can focus on their food too.
Good idea.
Talk about the food while you're eating it. And then that'll also bring other people into paying attention to, their eating.
Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Robert.
Robert. Robert.
Here too, hi.
So, anybody else want to check in or have any questions you want to share or ask? Holly, hi, Holly.
Hi. Oh, good, you can see me. After 2 weeks, I wasn't sure if I was going to get on, which way.
I can hear you.
Everybody, yeah,
We
thank
can
you.
hear you. Welcome, welcome.
Yes, and it's getting warmer.
Yes, it's all the way up to 15 today, I think.
That's right. Good deal.
Yeah. So,
The snow is melting in the sun.
isn't that lovely?
Oh, good.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so, if there's nobody else that wants to check in, then why don't I get you all to mute yourselves, and then that way we won't have any background noise. Okay, so I read a poll by the Kaiser Family Foundation, and they did back in July. They did a poll, and yeah, July of 2020. This is past July, and the respondents reported that they all had pandemic-related negative reactions, and that it was affecting their health. And the majority, it was 53%, as a matter of fact, of the people that they polled said that. And then they said that also the majority of those people polled felt that the worst was yet to come. So I would say that even now, our future still remains uncertain. And so it's really, I would say it's even more important now to be focusing on our well-being. And I don't know if anybody listened to Richie Davidson last Wednesday when he did a guided meditation on YouTube. Okay, so Richie Davidson's at the University of Wisconsin and the founder of the Center for Healthy Minds. And their mission, as he says, is to increase well-being and decrease suffering with a scientific understanding of the mind. Okay. So, and after decades, they've done decades of research on happiness and mindful and meditation, and they've arrived at the 4 pillars of well-being. So today we're going to focus on the first one, which is awareness. But what I'm going to do is go over them very quickly, and then if you're interested, you can always go to their website, and I will post the link to their website on the YouTube when I post it, when I upload it to YouTube. Anyway, so the 4 pillars of well-being are awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. So awareness is, in fact, I think what I'll do, because a lot of people learn by seeing and visual, and sometimes it breaks up, so it's not so easy for you to hear me. So I'll just put it up. That's not the one I wanted. New share. This one. Okay. Why does that one keep showing up? Maybe if I just move it out of the way. There we go. And I think I'll try to, make this a little bigger so you can see it better. So the 4 willows, 4 pillars of well-being. They call it ASIP around there, they say. So awareness. So that includes our capacity to pay attention and also our capacity for self-awareness. Okay. Knowing what our minds are actually doing. In other words, when we're thinking, being aware of our thinking, it's called meta-awareness. And the second one is connection, and that's cultivating qualities that are important for healthy human relationships. The third is insight, and that's about getting curious about our own mind, and particularly how this self, our self, works. I'll quote Richie Davidson, it's really about self-knowledge, deeply understanding how our beliefs about ourselves can literally shape our experience of reality. Okay. And then the 4th one is purpose, which is about getting motivated and imbuing our everyday behaviors with a sense of meaning and purpose. For example, they use the example washing the dishes because it will be beneficial to the other people that live in your house. Or, I would also include practicing meditation because that makes you, let's just say, better person. And then it affects all the people that you come in contact with. So it really helps to, no matter what you're doing, recognize why you're doing it. And if it is in alignment with your values, it's going to make you enjoy it more. Okay, let me stop the share. All right, so let me just over here. So the first pillar, the ability to deploy your attention and place it where you want it, keep it there for as long as you want to. All right. And so, of course, concentration is the best practice. And that's the most effective for developing your attention. Welcome, Anne. But here's the thing. Even if you're practicing concentration meditation, if you believe every thought that passes through your mind, and if you entertain even harmful thoughts, then your concentration is going to suffer. All right. So developing a wise relationship with our thoughts really means increasing the ability to be aware of your thinking. Okay. And again, I mentioned before, it's called meta-awareness. One of the most important things that we learn when we're practicing meditation is that we are not our thoughts. They arise and pass away. So how can they be who we are? Yet we tend to fuse with them and believe every thought that, in the untrained mind, we believe everything that we think. And in the awake mind, we use our thoughts as tools for our well-being, okay, and for the well-being of others. All right. So last week, someone asked me, how do I stay so happy? And what I want to talk about is just for a moment, the happiness that I like to talk about or to share is really not about pleasure that comes and goes, or things that we get externally. It's more about experiencing that we're so much bigger than any thought, emotion, or sensation that passes through our awareness. And in fact, sort of recognizing that, and we practice long enough and deep enough, we recognize that we are awareness, okay? And our experience of our natural awareness can feels like happiness, but you can also call it peace or joy or love or serenity or contentment, or sometimes it feels like a deep sense of spaciousness. But I'll read a quote by Rupert Spira, who describes happiness is not a temporary experience that alternates with unhappiness. It is not the opposite of unhappiness any more than the blue sky is the opposite of the clouds. So the other thing I just want to mention is that one of the other ways that I maintain happiness personally is that I am committed to being mindful. So when I'm not focused on something that requires my attention, then the first thing I do is check with my state of being. And if it's feeling agitated, then what I immediately do, and I guess the best way to put it is I practice the RAIN meditation, RAIN, recognize, allow, investigate, and non-identify is the way I like to work with it. And also I'll put, Tara Brach has sort of adapted that and expanded it, the RAIN meditation. So that'll also be up on the YouTube page. I'll post that. So again, so looking at our happiness and recognizing that if it's external, then it's going to come and go. And so we can't count on that. But I think the thing that we can do the most in terms of increasing our well-being and decreasing our suffering is to recognize and ask ourselves the question, is this thought helpful or is this thought harmful? Is this a skillful thought or is it harmful? Because if we don't know what we're thinking, then we don't know if our thoughts are distorted or not. So it's really learning how to step back from. So that's the practice that we'll do in a little bit. But for right now, I think just to do a little bit of reflection and get a sense of the state of our mind right now, okay? And working a little bit with our thoughts. So let's just do a short reflection and maybe just allow yourself to get comfortable and take a couple of deep breaths. You may want to close your eyes. And to just ask the question, what is the state of my mind right now? Is it relaxed, busy, chaotic? Just watching your thoughts. And see if you can watch your thoughts for 1 minute, like a cat that's next to a mouse hole. See if you can count your thoughts. And for the next 60 seconds, I'll set a timer. I'm not sure how to stop it. Well, if it comes back, I'll stop it again. So how many people had 10 thoughts? Carol. How many people had 20 thoughts? How many people couldn't count all the thoughts? So let's see, Carol, you had 10 thoughts and nobody else raised their hand. Oh, you got, okay. Dorothy. Yeah. And okay,
I think I had too many to count.
okay. Okay. Busy mind then, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, who would think that a minute would feel so long? We could have that many thoughts in a minute. 1 minute.
I had 5, but it was like I was really watching them, you know?
Ah, okay.
And it seemed to stop it a little bit.
Ah, so you had space between your thoughts. Right? That's wonderful. Who is it? Shinzen Young talks about the space between our thoughts, because as we begin to meditate for more, and I know Dorothy's been meditating now every day for a half hour for almost 2 months, 60 days. But Shinzen Young talks about the longer we meditate, the space between our thoughts gets wider, and that gap between the thoughts feels good. So we start to focus on the gap and then let it get wider because it feels so good and becomes like a positive feedback loop that we just want to hang out in this gap between thoughts. So yeah, because thoughts start to slow down. So okay. So let's see. Psychologists say that we have between 70 and 90,000 thoughts a day. And most of them we had yesterday. Okay, so we can't stop our thoughts, but we can develop a wise relationship with them. We talk to ourselves all the time. And when we're talking, who are we talking to? Like, let's use these, I like to use the example. Okay, so I open up my screen and I see all your wonderful faces and I think, oh, I'm so glad they're all here today, right? So who am I telling? Is there somebody inside here that doesn't see the screen? Who am I talking to? Sam Harris, who's, I love how he says that if we could broadcast our thoughts and everybody around us could hear them, they would be sure we were crazy. Um, yeah. So, and I think also one of the most important things that he ever said is, and by the way, Sam Harris is the neuroscientist and the author of Spirituality, Waking Up Without Religion. As he says, when we're thinking sad, angry, or fearful thoughts, we can't help but feel sad, angry, or scared. So to me, that's really powerful. Is that if I'm thinking sad thoughts, I'm going to feel sad. If I'm thinking angry thoughts, I'm going to feel angry. So you see the power that our thoughts can have over us, though, and that connection. And maybe next week we'll do a practice of recognizing the connection with thought and emotion. So anyway, one of the important things that we need to do, first off, is to recognize that we're not our thoughts, that we are the observer of our thoughts. So again, that gives us this chance to step back. And I would say that the first tip that I would give you today is to ask that question. Anytime you're feeling upset, is to ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is this thought skillful? Or is it harmful? But it's a good question to keep asking yourself. Is this a helpful thought? Or is this a skillful thought? Okay. Okay, so in a minute, we're going to practice cognitive diffusion, diffusing ourselves from our thoughts. But this past weekend, I attended a seminar with David Treleaven, who is the author of the book Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, and he teaches mindfulness teachers. And you've all probably noticed that meditation, thoughts while one is in an altered state. Okay, Eileen. Oh, I see. Okay, I'll look at that later. So I'm going to say, okay, so you probably all noticed that meditation isn't always rainbows and unicorns. That there's times when it's really hard. Well, one of the things that, or a concept that I think that can be helpful is the window of tolerance. And I'm going to share some images which also give us a little more clarity. The window of tolerance. There. So when we're in our window of tolerance, where we feel balanced and calm, we feel relaxed and in control and able to function effectively and to take what life throws at us, to feel like we can rise up to the challenges. When we're not in our window of tolerance, we are either hyper aroused, or which is, and I can't read it because it's very, very small. Let's make this a little bigger. We're anxious, angry, out of control, overwhelmed. The body wants to fight and run away. So it's not something that you choose. The reaction takes over. That's when we're out of our window of tolerance. Or we can go the opposite direction, which is hypo-aroused. So you're feeling spacey or zoned out, numb or frozen, and your body just wants to shut down. So again, it's not something that you choose, that reaction still takes over. This is a visual aid put out by the National Institute for the Clinical Application of Behavioral Medicine. That's a big mouthful, but Eileen, those people, they're right down the street from you. They're in Mansfield, Connecticut, yeah. Ruth Brzezinski is her name, yeah. So they do a lot of seminars, and but this is just good to have a visual to get a sense of what's really important is to be able to, what I want to say, to step out of, to recognize when you're getting out of your zone or window of tolerance, and know steps for ways that you can get back in. I will put some resources again in the reference. Like Rick Hansen is a really great resource. He has a great website with all kinds of resources. Christopher Berglund, who has a blog on Psychology Today, and he does a lot. I think he wrote The Athlete's Way, but he does a lot on physicality and, for example, being able to get back and activate our parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest or tend and befriend part of our parasympathetic, part of our nervous system. So anyway, I'll put those links or those references up. Eileen, did you want to say something?
I was just gonna, as an aside, say that Ruth is a friend of mine. Yeah, who does that program.
Yeah, she does. I know she leads a lot of seminars, and I've taken a few. So it's nice to know she's your friend. Okay, so the other thing I'd like to share with you, there's one more thing. There's a, excuse me, a website, a woman who named Jamie, oh, I have to do the share part, don't I? Ann Smith, and she has had a concussion, yeah. And she talks about, and she also talks about how not only having had a concussion, but people who have had trauma. And we've all had trauma in our lives at some point in our lives. And hopefully we'll never again. But I just wanted to share with you some of the things that can come up that help you to recognize, like, maybe this is not the right time to be practicing, and to be able to find alternative. For example, when I'm leading a guided meditation, if it starts to feel overwhelming to you, or you're stepping out of your window of tolerance, then that's when you want to either stop thinking, stop listening to what I'm saying, and start shift your attention to something pleasant, or get up and walk around your room. And it's important to find the tools that will help you get back into your window of tolerance, but to recognize when you're about to step out so that you don't step out. So she says, sometimes it's overwhelming even to try to be mindful. The chaos in my mind and body was so great that even the effort of paying attention to the present moment was too much stimulation. So recognizing when you've had too much stimulation. She says it can feel like too much effort, too much cognitive activity, and that can be exhausting. She said, sometimes when I lean into my feelings, I experience an intensification of difficulties. She says, when we concussion or trauma survivors are invited to pay intimate attention to very intense sensations and emotions, sometimes we get overwhelmed, sometimes to the point of a panic attack. So you certainly don't want to let it go that far. And she also says it's difficult for people with healthy nervous systems to truly understand the experience of those who have a messed up nervous system. Many people can lean into their difficult emotions and painful sensations more easily than we can, she says. And it can be intense and hard to do, but most of the time they don't go into overwhelm. Okay. She says we concussion and trauma survivors go into the red zone of overwhelm, and when we don't need to. Our brain and our traumatized body acts as though we're still in grave danger, and we end up out of our window of tolerance. She says, in this sense, and this is funny, in this sense, inviting us to lean heavily into our symptoms is sometimes like handing us a syringe full of stress hormones and asking us to go back to our cushion and inject it. I might, I can't, looking forward to saying that to one of my teachers when I'm on retreat. Anyway, just an interesting perspective. So, as she says, this can leave us feeling, though, ashamed. Why is it that everyone else can seem to be able to sit with their difficulties and not fall apart? And then you ask the question, what's wrong with me? And as she said, as with any trauma, it's not about what's wrong with you, it's about what happened to you. Yeah. So as she says, our nervous systems don't act the same way they used to. So we become easily overwhelmed. It's not our fault. So that's an important, I also think you might get a sense of empathy listening to how she describes dealing with her symptoms of having had a concussion and how it affects your nervous system. So that's why it's really good to learn how do we calm that nervous system and how do we balance it. You know? Okay, so I think the last, so we're going to go on to doing the guided practice on cognitive diffusion. And I want to use an example. It'll give you hopefully a little clearer about what it means to diffuse from your thoughts. Like say you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching, say, a high action film and you're lost in the story and you're anxious to see what's going to happen next. And then the movie freezes. And that's when you realize that you're in a theater watching a story. In that moment, you've stepped out of the story and you're not lost in the story. So cognitive diffusion is like that, in that it's that moment when we realize that we are not the story that we're telling ourselves, that we are the observer of our story. So let's practice. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered so far before we start practice? No. Okay, so I'll ask you all to put yourself on mute. And again, to be real conscious of your needs in this moment. If you need to turn off your camera or turn down the lights in your room, whatever works to help you stay present. And I'll start by ringing the bell. So in this practice, we're going to shift from looking from our thoughts to looking at our thoughts. So you may want to start with taking a good deep breath and slowing the breath down. You want to get into a position that's comfortable, but that allows you to be alert and relaxed. And if anything feels too stimulating, just feel free to either ignore my words and focus on something pleasant or neutral, or even get up and walk around your room. So with each inhale, maybe noticing how the air feels a little cooler as it goes in. And with each exhale, noticing how the air is a little warmer. And now I'd like you to, or invite you to, turn your attention to your body as it's sitting in a chair. And notice where your body is touching the chair. Some places lightly, some places more fully. And notice that it doesn't take any effort at all just to be where you are. And now picture in your mind's eye a beautiful field. And as you bring that image to mind, see if you can imagine that the room around you fades away and that you find yourself in the middle of that pleasant field. Perhaps on a warm, sunny day, You can feel the sun on your skin. Maybe you can feel a little breeze in the air. Or even maybe smell some coolness in the air. And as you look across this field, at the far distant end of the field, you see a tree. And you start walking toward that tree. And with each step, you become more and more present with where you are. And finally, you approach that tree and you go over to it and notice that it's on the edge of a creek bed. So you decide to take a seat next to that creek bed. And you place your hands down on the ground. And you can feel the coolness of the earth against your hands. As you make your way to that seated position, you look up and you can see the sun peeking through the tree. And you can see the leaves rocking back and forth in the treetop as the wind makes its way across them. And as you can see the leaves as you look below, you notice a stream, and you can see that it's flowing gently around rocks, descending downhill. And you can hear the sound of the water trickling and splashing against the rocks. And once in a while, a big leaf drops into the stream and floats away down that stream. And you watch it float by at its own pace. And now I'll invite you to become conscious of your thoughts. And each time a thought pops into your head, I'd invite you to imagine that it's written on one of those leaves. Do that with each thought, pleasurable, painful, neutral. If you think in words, you can put those words on a leaf. If you think in images, put those images on a leaf. The goal here is to stay beside the stream and allow the leaves on the stream to keep floating by. Allowing the stream to flow at its own pace. Not trying to rush the leaves along or get rid of thoughts, just allowing them to come and go at their own pace. No need to change what you find on the leaves or in the stream. Every time you have a thought, that goes on a leaf. Maybe you have a thought, this is really relaxing, and that goes on a leaf. Or maybe you have a thought, I don't know if I'm really doing this right, and that thought goes on a leaf. If a leaf gets stuck, allow it to hang around until it's ready to float by. And if the thought comes again, just watch it float by another time. If a difficult or painful feeling arises, simply acknowledge it and say to yourself, I notice myself having the feeling of boredom or impatience or frustration. And then place those thoughts on leaves and allow them to float along. When your mind wanders and you notice that you stop having thoughts on those leaves, just notice that and try to bring yourself back to the practice. And even put that thought on a leaf. I've stopped having thoughts on a leaf. And just waiting for the next thought. Notice that it doesn't take any effort at all. That without any struggle, your thoughts come and then they go. And notice what it's like to watch your thoughts from this more detached place. To look at your thoughts rather than from your thoughts. To look at your thoughts rather than from your thoughts. And now maybe see the last few leaves as they come down the stream. And put your final thoughts on those leaves. And then I invite you to bring your awareness back to your body. Seeing if you can have a sense of what it's like to just be sitting there by the creek. Notice if you feel more present or grounded. Then you start the walk back across the field And you get back to the end of the field from where you started. Perhaps bring your attention back to your breath, taking a few deep breaths. And if your eyes were closed, slowly opening them and bringing your awareness back to where your body is now, sitting in a chair or standing, looking around the room that you're in. I'd invite you to carry the intention of bringing this mindfulness into your life throughout the rest of your day. Maybe imagine how you will do that. I will finish with ringing the bell. Hi, Aline. Yes.
So you and I have talked on occasion about how it helps me to do something physical while I'm meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So for the first half of this, I did the EFT tapping.
Ah.
It was really very interesting. It was,
Does everybody know what the EFT tapping is? No? It looks like no. That's an emotional freedom technique. You can Google that and you can find it. There's different meridians that you can tap as a way to achieve your intentions, or at least set an intention. Yeah. So did it help you to watch your thoughts and step
yeah.
back from them? Yeah.
There were a couple of times that I didn't even realize I had, excuse me, that I had gone down a rabbit hole. So I had to catch myself down there and bring myself back.
Okay, that's the idea. Catching
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Eileen. How was it for you? Anybody else? Dorothy?
I went from being sad and fearful to loving and being loved. I'll take that any day.
So watching your thoughts and separating from them gave you more of a sense of,
It was a break between one and the other somehow.
okay. Hmm. Hmm. That's wonderful that it can do that.
Yeah, because I was working on that all morning. I couldn't get out of it.
Ah. Oh, okay. Hmm. Hmm. Wonderful. This exercise is called Leaves on a Stream, and it's I adapted it from the Cincinnati Veterans Association. They got it from, it was started through it's called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, which is based on mindfulness. Um, and so it's called Leaves on a Stream. So if you just Google Leaves on a Stream meditation, then you would find probably several scripts. But I'll also put a link to the Cincinnati Veterans Association up on YouTube too. So, and they have several, they have several sort of concepts or visualizations, like there's the passenger on the bus, where you imagine that you are the bus driver and your thoughts are the passengers, or the clouds in the sky. So you imagine your thoughts are just clouds floating by, you know. So there are several scripts that you can use as a way to defuse from your thoughts. That, again, I think that's being able to defuse from your thoughts is the most important thing I think you can do to increase your well-being. As Sam Harris said, if you're thinking sad, angry, and fearful thoughts, you're going to feel sad, angry, and fearful. So, yeah. So anybody else, how was that exercise for you? Feel like you're able to step back from your thoughts? How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, it was very nice. It was very visually appealing. Your voice is very calming, Donna.
Oh, good.
So it
Yeah.
kind of just flowed along, and I've sat by many streams and watched many leaves. So I was able to, definitely connect to the visual, and yeah, I did a fair bit of writing. I had a lot of leaves, and they kind of were caught in a bit of an eddy.
Yes, yes, yes.
Keeping they recircled and recycled. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's a nice one.
Mm,
I like it because there's everything about it is calming.
mm,
It felt really nice and calm for me.
oh,
So that's one I would like to use,
yeah, yeah. Wonderful.
again.
Mm, wonderful. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the thoughts, for me, they just don't ever stop.
Right, and they don't. Well, they don't stop for anybody. They just get a little slower
Okay,
as
all
you
right.
practice. Yeah. And they also, you begin to, have you practice longer, they begin to be sort of in the background.
Mm,
You can actually
mm,
have them be in the background and your consciousness is in the foreground. Yeah. So,
right. Yeah, that'll be a goal to get to.
there you go. Yeah, so
It's a lot
practice
of
every
work.
day. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also,
Hmm.
I like when you point out that my voice is calming, simply because one of the things that I do when I'm leading the guided meditation is to go into a state of uh, deep state of awareness as I can. Because what that does, when you hear that voice coming from that state, then we can't help but kind of go into that state. So because of our mirror neurons, you know, yeah, the mirror neurons will have us feeling that. So that's why it's really important um, for me to slow down, remember, and the way I know I'm doing that is I don't have a furrowed brow anymore. Anyway, yeah. Okay. So, anybody else want to share how that exercise was for you? Kit, you're muted, Kit.
It was very good for me. It was calming.
Ah,
I loved the field, walking across it, the tree, the leaves floating in the stream. And I had lots of stuff to write on the leaves, and it was good.
yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So, yes, you found it calming. That's great. Yeah.
I did.
I think everybody, yeah, has said that. Yeah. Colin, did you want to say something? Thanks, Kit.
Yeah, I just want to say that I found this guided imagery meditation much more fun than the one you took us on before into some dark dungeon someplace. And I thought we all was a little scary.
I'll remember that one. Yes.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to say that I think the most powerful thing I heard you say today is that we are not our thoughts, that what we think is not really who we are, that we can sit back and in our awareness, look at those thoughts, but not assume that those thoughts are really ourselves. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. Yeah, because we get so fused with them, we're going to believe them all. So that's what we do. And how wonderful, how liberating it is to recognize that we are not our thoughts. How wonderful. Yeah. Because again, once you can recognize that, you can say, okay, so I can let that thought go. It's a stupid thought. I can let it go. Or it's making me feel bad. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to stop it right now. And that's why I talked about that rain exercise. That's another, maybe we'll do a guided rain next week too. Recognize, allow, investigate, and not identify. the way Tara Brach does it is the N stands for nurture. Nurture what you find after you do the investigation. But I think both of them are important. You want to nurture what you find, but you also not want to identify with whatever is coming up. Again, if you can keep that distance, that we're so much bigger than whatever the thought is, whatever the emotion is, even whatever the sensation is. I remember a quote by, I'm sure it was some monk, who was in the hospital and he had just had surgery, and the doctor came in and said, he was laying in the hospital bed and said, "How are you feeling?" And he said, "Oh, I'm fine. My body's terrible, but I'm fine." My body's in a lot of pain, but I'm fine. So we can do that. Yeah. Just because we're in pain doesn't mean we have to be miserable. Yes, Holly.
I would love to do one of these, even if it's a little shorter each time. I think it was very relaxing and very, the imagery and being where you are.
Okay, you mean the imagery and the letting go of the thoughts, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Maybe, as an intro or something. Thank you, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, because that is what in the beginning, that's what we're working. I think Aline just said yes. I think that's what we're working with anyway, is our thoughts. That's the most important recognition is, being aware of what we're thinking when we're thinking it. So, yeah. Okay, thanks, Holly. Well, we have 2 more minutes. So, anybody else want to share how that was for you? And if not, then, so if you just, I can send you a link, but if you just Google Donna Jana's YouTube channel, then you'll see all of them, and then I'll make sure I put this one up later this evening. So you can find it, and then you can do the guided meditation again if you want. And all the references too, so. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here.
Oh, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, namaste.
Good week.
Have a
Keep
beautiful
warm.
week. Yes. Bye-bye.
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 Blessings.
Love how my hands disappear.
How fun.